All right, well, I've got 8:30. I'll start out a little unusual. I'm going to apologize if you start hearing sounds that sound like a herd of buffalo tromping across the computer. My grandkids are upstairs. We kind of plug them in. They're in the process of leaving down to Phoenix, but the herd can make themselves known. So I apologize if that occurs. We're talking this morning about finishes. We did it once a couple of years ago. Several people had expressed an interest in going back to this and seeing what's new. And I have to admit that when we talked about it last time, I didn't have enough experience myself to even have semi-intelligence about it. So I've got a number of questions for people, and I'm sure appreciate input on what's going on. As everybody knows, there's so many choices out there. Um, Susan was kind enough. I was hoping she'd be here today. Let's see, I got one more coming in. She sent me a number of articles that I'm happy to send out to the whole club just to give information. And we can talk about some of those. Some of hers had to do with safety and other things, and they were well put together. So, hey, Mark, would you be willing to start us off? You sent me some pictures, and
Oh, okay.
let me get this lined up. The pictures that you sent were of tung oil. And so I thought we'd start with oils and move our way out to other items as we kind of move along. If we want to call this natural, we can. We can certainly have an argument about that. You want to tell us why you sent this picture and how you use it?
Yes. So before I get into this particular product and what it does for me, I want to talk about the other one. I didn't get around to sending a picture um, of it, but I have this one called Tried and True that I sometimes use, and it basically depends on what kind of finish I'm looking for and whether or not I want to be fast with it or not, because the water logs takes longer. But Tried and True, original wood finish. It is a polymerized linseed oil and beeswax, and that's this container right here. I didn't get a picture sent to you, Bruce, and I apologize for that. But this is a very quick and easy product that I use, and it gives me a finish. This is one of the small bowls that I've done. It's more of a satiny kind of a finish to it, and um, if I want to be quick with a finish, then I just go to this Tried and True, and it works very well. I know several people in the club have used it. Dave Henderson, I think Rick has used it, and other people. But it's it's a good product, and I like it. So the other one that you see on the screen there, it's water locks. On the left side is a sealer and a semi-gloss finish. And depending on what kind of finish you're looking for, the gloss, um, I have not stayed with the semi-gloss. I used the one on the left as a sealer, just one coat of that. And then I move on to the gloss finish, because when I've used the gloss finish, everybody seems to love it. And especially my wife really likes the glossy glass looking finish, if you will. I like it too. So um, there are some drawbacks with using water locks, and that is the time frame that you need to wait 24 hours in between coats. And I think I mentioned it in my demonstration at the club that I tried after 14 hours. I figured, well, that's long enough. And I went out to do the next coat or first use some um, imitation steel wool on 4/0 on it. And it just got real gooey and gummed up and stuff. And I um, had to sand all the way back down to the wood to get rid of it. So I learned my lesson. I said, okay, I'll wait 24 hours next time. So I did, and I've had great results since then. So let's move on to one of the pictures.
Mark, how long does that take to actually cure completely?
Um, I think it says that on the can. I don't have the can in front of me, but um, total cure totally is probably 5 to 6 days.
So that there's no smell at all anymore, 5 or 6 days?
Right.
It just so I can ask, is that picture up there of your bowl? So that is that what you're seeing now?
No, I still see the picture of the two Waterlocks cans.
Okay. Because that's always the issue with tongue oil. It takes a while for it to really cure. Pure tongue oil can take 30 days. Is that what other people experience with tongue oil?
Um, I can't speak for what other people experiences are, but usually generally after 6 to 7 days, that looks really good and feels good. So this is one of the products. So what I normally do is when I'm ready to put the finish on, I sand up to 600 grit and making sure that I spend enough time in each grit, and then apply the semi-gloss or sealer. I use that, but you don't necessarily have to use Waterlocks as a sealer. You can use another sealer, and I have done that. I've used Zinser um, um, sealer a few times because Zinser only takes an hour to for it to cure, and then I can move on to the semi-gloss finish. But in between coats, I always it depends on where I am and the process. And sometimes I'll sand 600 again, and sometimes if it feels really good, then I'll just use the imitation steel wool in between, and go to the next coat. So the high gloss, um, sometimes it only takes 2 coats, but there's been a few times I had to go to 3 coats to get the finish I'm looking for.
And how long do
So
you wait between them?
24 hours.
The full for each coat.
Yes. So that is the main drawback. The other drawback is the cost of water locks. I think I paid $46 for the sealer and $54 for the high gloss. Um, but I think it's worth it because the final finish is just gorgeous. I really do like it a lot. I mean, I'm impressed with Waterlocks. It's my go-to finish.
All right, you had one other one here. Um, there we go. Is that the same finish?
Yes, that's another Waterlocks. That's mostly resin, but with some olive wood in it. But um, and that's the Waterlocks finish as well. But Oh, the other thing is Waterlocks has a shelf life, so you have to. I always put dates on the um, on the product. Oh, I didn't take a picture of the stop loss bags. I used stop loss. I don't know if people know what those are, but um, stop loss bags, you can pour the finish into the bag and then squeeze out the air. So in the finish, as a lot of people probably know, air is your enemy when it comes to shelf life. If you can squeeze the air out of that stop loss bag, your product is going to last so much longer. So that's what I use for those
One of
to
the
help.
articles Susan sent me was advocating using the food saver vacuum containers. And we use food savers for the freezer. I think if I used the food saver down in my shop, there would be some trouble that would exist. There's
Yeah,
no
prob
vacuum you have to do with the water or the bags you're using, right? You just squeeze the air out and
Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. I have the same thing. Somebody said, "Oh, your vacuum chamber." When I use cactus juice, a stabilizing liquid, part of that process is taking it to an oven, and I oven in the house, but there might be some problems with that as well. So that's why I have a toaster oven in my workshop.
the non-flammable toaster oven.
Yeah, another story there. Yeah. So that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I have had several people that have asked me for help on applying the water locks. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to Steve Friedman's workshop this morning to help him with it.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Um,
Mark, Mark, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm just curious. I came in a minute or two late from your presentation. I apologize, but did you mention yet what your applicator is? What you like?
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought that up. Some people have used some um, cloth applicators that will leave some debris behind. So I use a lint-free cloth. Buy it simply at Home Depot, and on the bag it says lint-free T-shirt type material on it, and they come in big, oh, I don't know, 12 by 12 sheets that are all in this bag. And I just cut them into 4 or 5 inch squares. And um, that's what I use for that.
Thank you.
That's it.
to
I
say
suppose you could use some t-shirts, but this works pretty very well for me.
if you can find them, they're a little not that difficult. You go to medical supply houses, surgical towels are kind of wonderful because they are completely lint free. They don't leave anything behind. Obviously, you wouldn't want them to, but they usually come as that blue surgical towels. It's kind of universal and it's a great applicator as well, just with no lint. While we were on the subject of oils, I was going to just throw this one up. I use this. When I researched tongue oils, I found that the marketplace is a very difficult place to know where truth is. And the vast majority of tongue oils aren't tongue oil at all. The one that I got stung by was Minwax's tongue oil finish. And there's little to no tongue oil in it. It supposedly just gives you a finish similar, but this is pure tongue oil, and you kind of know it. It's a very dark amber color, and it's thicker than a lot of the oils we use. But there's no dryers or anything else in it, so that it has a high safety factor for both application as well as for use afterwards after it cures. I did a piece recently. I'm on week 3, just starting week 3 after finishing it, and I can still get a little bit of a smell coming off of it. This takes about 4 weeks to completely cure. I have found if I set them out in the sun for a couple hours, that curing process goes way up. It already shortens it quite a bit. So this is a good product. And Mark, because you brought up, there's your tried and true. I haven't tried this product, but other people have uh, shown it to me and advocated for it. They really like it. But I'm going to use it as an example of where you got to be really careful. And I'm sure most of you are aware of this. Be very careful of the advertising. You know, they're saying this linseed oil is polymerized for fast curing. Well, obviously, if it's polymerized, it's already just partially cured in the bottle. And they say they don't use any toxic drying aids, but that it dries faster. And I would love to know how you get tung oil or linseed oil to dry faster without adding a drying agent. The drying
Yeah,
agents are metallic, and they're really only problematic when it's in the liquid or drying curing stage. They are completely food safe, as Mark's product is, that other tung oil. Any of these are absolutely food safe once they're completely cured. So if you can smell anything still coming off of it, let it sit for a little bit longer. I don't know if there was, this is the tried and true. I found their SDS sheet just because I wanted to see what they said. And they said complies with product safety standards established for food and contact services. I actually went to the FDA site. It's only about 300 pages long. It's very difficult to get through. And they list things that are problematic, and it's not really a very long list. Tried and True is saying there's no heavy metal dryers, but notice that they add this comment: metallic salts of cobalt manganese could be a health risk to those who manufacture them, not who use them either in application or use them as a product in a food safe environment. So I'm never sure what this advertising means. It doesn't mean much to me. I'm looking for products and what they have, but that gives you an idea of where advertising comes into it. I'm interested in trying that product, Mark. I've heard a lot about it, and people did like it a lot.
uh,
Let's
several
not.
people in our club have used tried and true, and maybe some of them on the Zoom here today. But everybody that I've spoken to about tried and true seemed to like it.
Any chance you could bring that one wood bowl to the meeting this month? I'd love to feel that. Um,
Yes.
I, I like this tung oil because it gives this, it's hard for me to describe what the finish feels like after it's completely cured. The only word I come up is kind of like buttery. It's not oily at all, but it's just this really soft feel, and it does come out as satin. It's not gloss.
Yeah, I did bring this bowl once before at a meeting. Maybe you weren't there, but the wood is called black ash. And I'd never seen black ash before, but um, I like the finish, but I tend to like the Waterlocks finish much better.
Anybody else have comments about use of oils, linseed, boiled linseed?
Before we leave that, Bruce, I just wanted to say the Waterlocks is a polymerized tung oil, and I don't know if it's pure tung oil or if it's like you were talking about tung oil finish, but um, I didn't read up on that, do the SDS research on it. But um, anyway, it is a good product. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that I've discovered, and in my reading, um, it's very difficult to sort out what's actually in these products. Very hard to figure it out. Um, One of the things that the FDA requires is certain types of testing has to be done. And what I learned is that nobody does the testing. And they don't do it because it would be phenomenally expensive to actually work these out. And so they use interesting language to say that they're kind of FDA compliant, not FDA approved or FDA tested. Be aware that a lot of this stuff isn't. It's just simply known that their tongue oil, for example, linseed oil, are not toxic to the body. It's only the volatile organics added to it or dryers while it's in the liquid state that are problematic.
While we're on that subject, I read somewhere, and I can't remember where I saw it, but maybe some other people can chime in here and tell me what they think about it. But I can't remember if it was article or chat discussions or whatever, but the person said all finishes, no matter what you're using, are eventually food safe after a period of time of curing, whatever the cure time is. After that, they're all food safe, and you could put salad in the bowl or any other kind of food, and it's good to go. So I don't know if that is actually true, but again, I don't remember where I read that.
If I can weigh in on this, sorry, my camera's not working again today. Several years back, AAW had an article about food safe finishes. And they said that if your product is manufactured in the US, every one of the finishes we use is food safe, with a caveat that it passes the smell test. That's a simple test. You just sniff your item. If you smell any volatile elements from it at all, set it aside. It's not cured yet. So if it passes the sniff test, any of these products that are manufactured in the US are food safe. However, if it's manufactured elsewhere, they may throw in other dryers or other ingredients that are not necessarily food safe. So
Well,
that is an
Ken,
AAW article you can look up on the website.
Ken, thanks for bringing that up, and maybe that's where I read it. I couldn't remember the source, but I appreciate you telling us about that. That's a good way to do some more research. But yeah, maybe that's where I saw it.
Bruce, you asked about other oils. One of the oils I like to use is walnut oil. It it lasts, but eventually you may have to add more after it's dried over time. But it's usually food safe, and so I use it quite often. I've also found that it's a good product for wet sanding. I had a piece one time that was very difficult to sand. And so I used the walnut oil to sand it, and it ended up with two things. First of all, it helped with the sanding, and it was finished when I was finished. So I do use walnut oil sometimes.
What kind of walnut oil do you use?
The one I have used is a product put out by Mike Mahoney. I don't remember the brand name, but Mike Mahoney uses it quite often. So I felt like it was something that had to it.
It's Mahoney's walnut oil.
That's it. Yes.
Yes, and Mahoney also makes a wax to follow that up with, and I have some of that. I've used that walnut oil as well, but the wax kind of gives it uh, a nice little finish too. So
Anybody use walnut oil off your pantry that you use for salad dressing?
I think it's a different it's not the same as the salad dressing, no.
It doesn't have the dryers in it. There has to be something in the Mahoney's that gets it to dry. Again, that's safe. I actually did try it once just out of curiosity, and it works quite well, but it does really prolong the drying time. Plan on 30 days, 40 days for complete drying without any drying agents in. It takes a long time for it to dry, and it tastes better.
As Kathy said, we've used the Mahoney walnut oil. The final finish once it's cured is very much like using Danish oil. But Danish oil has dryers in it and the walnut oil does not. And one other thing I've seen is that Danish oil will darken the wood. Walnut oil will darken it a little bit, but not nearly as much as Danish oil will. So if you're interested in keeping it a little bit lighter color, then the walnut oil is a good way to go.
I wonder if anybody would like to chime in on what you do for sealers. We had talked about sanding sealers in the past. Are you using a sealer before you use oils or finish?
I'll chime in if nobody else will. I really prefer 50-50 denatured alcohol and shellac. It's easy. You can make up a little bit of it. If you make up too much, I've tried that, make up an 8-ounce bottle of it, and a month later, the bottle's all squeezed tight and there's no good stuff left in it. But I use that on almost everything that I finish some way or another as a pre-final sanding. I like the way that if I put a different color on something, whether it's a flat board or it just levels things out a little bit, helps reduce the number of coats I've got to put on, and so forth. I hate the lacquer sanding sealers simply because of the stink that leaves in the shop for 3 weeks.
Do you find that inhibits any other finish over the top of it? That shellac, can you use oils, varnish, lacquer?
Almost everything. And if you want, you can make it a little heavier on the denatured alcohol. It'll also soak down in real well. And I like the way it raises the grain before the final sand, particularly on a surface finish like polyurethane. I haven't found much difference. It will help a little bit with if you're going to put an oil on it, a linseed oil or a Danish or something else, in not having to put so many coats on. But again, you don't want to saturate it. It's just a quick and done and move on.
If you're not saturating, how do you know when you've applied enough?
When I think I've applied enough. Sorry. If it's a real porous wood, such as maybe a mesquite, we use a lot of that in turning and so forth. It's going to go in real quick, and you might try another one. But again, I'm not trying to put a finish. I'm just trying to put a little bit of liquid on it, let it dry, and then 10 minutes later, I can start sanding it. If you've got a real porous, we had a student yesterday that put some on an end grain platter, and it just sucked it in like a straw, and it's going to take about an hour for it to cure out and for that dryer to dry out of there and so forth. So again, sometimes it's an experiment with the wood if you're not familiar with what it does.
So
and
Dean,
when you talk about mixing up your own, are you using the dry shellac? The flakes?
I haven't used the flakes. Jerry in our class, he uses the flakes. I have not, but I see a good reason to use the flakes because you can mix up 3 or 4 ounces of it, and that's all you need. Where if you buy a can of this stuff, you've got to use it up. If the shellac starts to turn amber looking or too gooey looking, I've had to throw half a can away, and I hate that. So consequently, we've been experimenting with making our own finishes, oil finishes, and that's a lot of fun too. But I don't know if I'd recommend it to anybody because up here, for example, is Carnauba wax flakes that I bought, and then we have orange. I really like this stuff. Orange citrus solvent. We put this in some stuff instead of paint thinner or mineral spirits, and it smells a lot better. It does work as a good dryer, but again, I really do like a sealer, the shellac. It's just kind of a go-to.
I've
Somebody
got a
else had a
split.
question. Oh, go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, I've got a split. Thanks for the good information. Uh, I learned a lot as always in chips and grits. So take care. See you next time around.
Bye, Dick.
All right, bye. Does anybody use shellac still as their final finish? No. Yeah, just
Bob
curious.
Zimmerman does his what's he called? Shine juice. His exclusive finish. And that's just the alcohol, shellac. Is there a third thing? I can't remember. Is it
And
just-
wax. The shine juice is wax, alcohol, and shellac.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And it seemed like John Armstrong used to use a three-way mix of, I want to say he used mineral oil, shellac, and one other thing. I can't remember what it was. And that was his final. He swore by it. Maybe it was alcohol. Okay. I don't have any experience with the new polyacrylics, and I know a lot of you do. Maybe some of you could talk about pros and cons that you've run into with the water-based or the oil-based, if you're still using that. Anybody still using oil-based polyacrylic? It was interesting.
Not
Is that the
polyacrylic,
wipe
but I
on
still
poly?
use oil-based wipe on poly.
Yeah, are you still using that, Ken?
Yes,
Yeah.
almost exclusively, unless it's a project where I want to use a spray on lacquer. I used the polyacrylic a few years back for some flatboarding work I had done, and I liked it, but I haven't used it on any wood turning yet. It's still in my future at this time.
Who has used it?
One of the things I want to add on that is, as we were talking about cutting, I have cut my wiped on poly with mineral spirits, almost 50-50 for first coat, and it's almost the next step from a sanding sealer. It really soaks in, and then I just mix up a little tiny bit in one of our back burner cafe little cups, and you can use it up, and then the next coat you just cut it a little bit less and a little bit less. And what I found is it eliminates the marks that you get from wiping, and it really soaks in. But a word of caution, you could use satin wipe on poly, and by cutting it, it ends up being high gloss.
Hmm. And that's obviously the oil-based wipe on poly.
Yes.
Yeah. Is anyone here using the water-based wipe on poly? I've got a friend that swears by it, and I have no experience.
I have a bottle of it. I used once and will never use again. It was awful. It dried way too fast, and it just left marks, and it was just not, I didn't like it at all.
I'm in the same camp with that, Chuck. I tried wipe on poly, the water base, one time, and I didn't like the finish at all. I never used it after that.
I found that the water based are excellent products on a flat surface because you have to build it up so heavy. Otherwise, it takes 46,000 coats to get a buildup. And the other thing too is you can overwork it real easy because, like Chuck just said, it dries so fast that then you've got cavernous runs or streaks in it. For flat work, I love the waterborne product, but it's sprayed on and it's on a flat surface and but I haven't had any luck with it on turned items. And especially not if you're going to try to stain something, a waterborne stain. That's like that's a real experiment.
Why is that? Just to give streaking and everything?
Yeah, it soaks in so quickly and it's so hard to spread out. Like an oil-based stain, you can move it a little bit, and if you get a little too much, you just add a little bit of oil back to it and it'll soften it and come back again. But the water-based, for me anyway, I find it dries again real quick, and once it's dried, you'll have a big blotch somewhere, and I just haven't had good luck with it. Maybe others have.
I'd be interested in getting Dick Kelly back here and seeing if he had any experience up in Maine with it, where you live in a humid environment. I think some of these products were impacted on by being in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody applying anything after the poly, or the poly is always your final coat? Chuck, this mix you use, is that you just go progressive percentages of the poly and that's it?
Yeah, and what I have found is using an Axe or a Triple E or something like that really gets it nice and smooth as well. And so I have done that between coats. Oh, and the thing I should mention is when I first put this on, I'm buffing it in like 30 minutes. And actually using a rag that's slightly damp with mineral spirits, and I'm buffing it, and then I just put it right back on. And so I can get 4 or 5 coats done in no time and get that build. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but it seems to work.
What is Axe and Triple E? I'm not familiar with those terms.
Oh, these are and Yorkshire Grit. That's the other one I actually
okay.
use. Those are they're not waxes, but they're finishes that have micro abrasives that break down. And the more you work them, the more the abrasive works down, and they eventually disappear. But and the nice thing about them is you can put finishes on after them. I was first hesitant because I thought they were waxes, but they're not. It's just some sort of vehicle that's used for the microfine powder, but they just kind of disappear.
When you say they break down, does it leave any color behind, the Yorkshire grits?
No, I guess what I'm meant is the crystals disappear. They break into nothing. So it's like using an abrasive that breaks down. It doesn't leave any grit whatsoever.
I'd be
Craft
interested.
Supply sells a product called Scratch Free, which is very similar, but it's actually formulated by Kirk DeHeer. He didn't want any of the volatile elements, any like Yorkshire Grit. Some of these others have some kind of volatile elements in it. So this one is all non-toxic. It does the same thing. It's a mixture of waxes, some kind of an oil. I think it's perhaps a mineral oil, and a polishing compound, which is just very fine grit. And like Chuck said, I was concerned when I first used it. It says you can put other finishes on it. I was a bit leery about that because I thought, well, wax and oil and a finish on top. But in fact, it's worked very well. I've never had a problem with any finish. I've put both polyurethane and lacquer on top of it with no problems whatsoever. And so it does darken the wood just a little bit, but it helps give you a nice smooth final finish.
I believe the grit that they're using in there is diatomaceous earth, which I'm told is used in toothpaste and finishes or facial products and other items, swimming pool filters and so forth. Dean, wanting to always try something different, went and bought 4 pounds of diatomaceous earth and mixed up some linseed oil, diatomaceous earth, beeswax, carnauba wax, carnauba being a little harder finish. I thought that'd be better. Put it in my pan and cooked it, and so forth. Put it in those back burner. You talked about, Chuck, the little back burner plastic cups. I caution people, if you do that, wait for the damn stuff to cool a little bit, otherwise it does melt the cup. But after it hardened up, it does have a real fine grit in it, perfectly safe to use. Again, I'm still experimenting with it. What I've been working on a lot on finishes for several months now is the difference between a surface mount and a oil that soaks in. And what does they do to the wood? Because we in turning, most of our stuff that we do in turning is never going to touch food. We're going to look at it, except for the utilitarian items, salad bowls and so forth. But what I'm finding is if you find a product that kind of looks cool, the waterborne stuff, if you want wood to look natural, try to use a waterborne product because it'll stay natural. And I've got proof of that in the shop here, using it on maple. If you want something to yellow, put something that has oil in it, and over time it's going to yellow and the likes. But I do believe that the grit is the diatomaceous earth. It's so darn powdery that, and once it's mixed in and so forth, it does disappear.
You think there's any difference between what you're buying as a wood turning product and what you buy as a swimming pool filter? Because that's
the stuff that I've got is supposedly a food grade and so forth. And I've had a filter like that in a pool, and I can't tell the difference between the powder. It is so darn fine.
right.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. But again, 4 pounds. It's hard to find it up here because not very many people use, diatomaceous, have a lot of pools. So I ordered, I figured 4 pounds, but I mean, it only takes like that much in a cup to make stuff. So I got enough for probably 14 years.
Well, regarding buffing, I have not had good luck with buffing. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Not sure what the issue is, but I tried it a few times and didn't like the results. But I'm interested to know how many people actually use the buffing system and if it works for you. Yeah, okay. Several do. So I'm probably doing it wrong.
Uh, Rick or Dan, you raised your hands. Do you have any comment on what you might be doing different that makes it work well?
Well, I do the hybrid stuff like Mark does sometimes, and I just use Danish oil on it, and I only sand to about 320, and then I buff the heck out of it, and it seems to work.
I have a suggestion. There's an issue with the buffing system that isn't common knowledge, and that is that the wax and the material that is put on the buffing wheel itself hardens up. You put it back in the drawer and it hardens up. If you take it out and begin to use it without conditioning the wheel first, it'll just put scratches in your piece. What I do is I put it on and then I have a sharp stick that I run into the wheel to knock all of the old stuff off before I start. Then I put more material on, and it's for me. It's always been a positive result.
I buff objects frequently, and I like the finish. But Mark, you said earlier on that you like a high gloss finish, and you may not be pleased with the buffing because that's going to take off some of that gloss. I, on the other hand, don't like a high gloss on most wood products. I like a more of a satin finish, and so I've never noticed any, but that may be why you don't like the result. I do, and I've used the BO buffing system for years now, and I like what I get off of it.
I also use the Beal system. I like it a lot. The other thing that I've found is if you do what Beal says and go to the high speed, you can soften the finish and screw up a finish on a piece. So I stay right around 750 RPM to do my buffing and then go through all three steps. And for me, I like the finish, I like the shine, and I buff just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same thing you taught us all, Bruce, when we had that demo that you went over. And I find what it does is even with the poly, it just seems to finish off that just the minute little bit of rough stiffs that's left from when you put a finish on, and it just seems to make it all uniform. And I like it. I do it too. I do it the same way you do it.
I've always stuck with the Beal suggested 1800 RPM, and more recently it was suggested slow that down. And so I'm kind of in between. I've done it both fast and slow. What I found is at the higher RPM, you have a better chance of actually abrading through the finish. You have to move quickly, and at the slower RPM, it's not quite as unforgiving. So that may be a good reason to go to the lower speed. But I've never gone as low as you have, Bruce, at 750. I've gone to about 1200 and had very good results there too.
Does anybody have any secrets to get the white diamond out of the grain in walnut?
Yeah, don't use it.
Yeah, don't use it.
Yeah, use it very, very sparingly.
Yeah.
I don't notice that the white diamond improves it that much to make it worth trying to get it out of the pores.
Yeah, I agree with you. And what Spence had said about wrapping up and the finished product getting hard on the wheel, but it sure can, and you don't want to use an awful lot of. I haven't found that you use a lot of the bar finish on there at all. A little bit will go a long way, kind of like Brill cream.
Is there any way to remove that, Dean, if you use just like a denatured alcohol to try to dissolve off the wood and restart? Yeah, you're probably going to damage your finish, but
Yeah, I actually had one that had a whole lot on it, and I washed it. I just put it in, hand washed it in my sink, and put a bunch of soap and scrubbed it, let it dry for 2 days. And what I got was a real frizzy, balled up mess wheel, and ordered a new wheel. So I think what Spence had mentioned, a good hard piece of wood pushed against it and try to scrape it off. But too much on it will ruin the wheel, will ruin the pad. I found real fast.
This may be a technique that Bruce, you taught us. I use 40 grit sandpaper, and that seems to take it off as well.
Good idea.
I didn't know that.
Good idea.
Actually, the Beal instructions, when you get a new wheel, they recommend you do something like that. Use a coarse grit, back it on with a block of wood, and run it against the wheel until you stop getting all the fibers coming off of it. The same technique would work well to kind of recondition it, get some of the polish off of the wheels and some of the wax, and then start over. So that would be just a 40, 60, 80 grit sandpaper, and just recondition it.
Yeah, the other thing, as I recall, is Beal recommends when you apply it to the wheel, you only want to be on there about maybe 1 to 3 seconds. That's it. Don't load up the wheel to do your buffing.
Okay.
That's some
Dean, when
pretty
you
good.
got the white diamond in the walnut, did you have sanding sealer on it first?
Yeah, it embeds walnut or even mesquite. It embeds down into the grain, and I haven't found a good way to get it out. I guess I could put acetone on it, but then I'd probably have to start all over again. So,
Well, I'm not asking or talking about how to fix it, but the question is, did you have sanding sealer on the walnut before you tried to buff it with the white diamond?
yes, actually, I'm poly too.
Oh, wow. So your sanding sealer didn't fill the pores very well.
Well, I don't know that sanding sealer will fill all the minute pores. Uh,
Well, not with one coat, but if you do a multiple coat with that, you should be able to get it sealed up.
yeah, that would work.
That's some pretty good stuff, guys. Maybe that's why I have not had good results because of what you have mentioned there from Spence and Dean and Rick, everybody. I know. So maybe I'll try the buffing again someday.
One other thing I found with using the buffing system, it will not take off what I call whiskers, i.e., sawdust or lint or stuff that's on the surface. It won't take that off. It'll just polish those little pieces of rock or sand or whatever's there. Um, so if your surface isn't clean when you finish and you've got those things on, I haven't found any luck. And I have to leave too. I've got an appointment to get to. I'm sorry. I'm glad I could join. And I wish I could join more often with all you nice gentlemen and ladies. I want to give you one caution, though, that I heard yesterday from Donna Richardson, who's in our club. We were talking about finishes and linseed oil. And her son actually is a fire captain. And he mentioned that the overwhelming majority of spontaneous combustion fires that they go to involves Danish oil or linseed oil, bar none. So be careful on that. Again, good seeing all of you folks, and I'll try more often to get in on Thursdays with you. If
See you, boss.
Good to see you,
take
Dean.
care.
The tried and true also has an oil base finish to it, and it too is subject to spontaneous combustion. So you don't want to just throw your rags in the trash can. They need to dry out first. Same thing with tung oil or Danish oil. Any of those oils can spontaneously combust. So be very cautious of that.
All right. We just have a few minutes left. Wonder if we could get any comments on anybody using lacquer finishes?
Yes, I do. On things like the basket illusion platters and bowls that I use, because they have a lot of crevices, I use a spray lacquer on those almost exclusively, because I figure I don't need the wear resistance of a polyurethane, and the lacquer, several coats of the lacquer, the spray itself will get into those crevices and the lacquer will build up, and it's got a fairly resistant finish, but I prefer functional items because it's resistant to water and alcohol and several other things that you would normally be in contact with a more functional item like a bowl. But I use spray lacquer frequently for items with crevices.
I use spray lacquer a lot on stuff that's going to be decorative. And if it's going to be something that's used, I tend to go to the Mahoney's walnut oil.
Anybody else using lacquer? I actually use a lacquer sanding sealer, but I use the one with the Deft with the nitrocellulose in it. it seems to seal much better than either the straight lacquer or the mixes. And I like it because I can dry it on the lathe in about 2 minutes. Just, buff it with a cloth and dry it at, 800, 900 RPM, and you're ready to go for your next coat.
I used to use a lacquer-based sanding finish, something John Armstrong taught us. 50-50 mix of wipe-on lacquer and lacquer solvent. 50-50 mix. It dries very quickly. It did a very good job as a sanding sealer, but I've since stopped using that because the fumes in the workshop bother Kathy, and so we've gotten away from using that. I don't use that anymore at all.
And you definitely need a wide open door with that stuff.
Hey, Bruce, I I know we only have 5 minutes left, but I think any conversation that we're having on finishes should have at least a few minutes talking about safety. Could you kind of lead us on that a little bit?
Sure. One of the biggest problems is the volatile organics that are used in most of these finishes. So you can smell it immediately. I mean, lacquer is a great example. Some of the oil finishes, immediately. Lacquer is probably one of the worst, just because it is such a high volatile item, or the lacquer thinner, that it saturates the air and it's hard to get away from breathing it. So you want to minimize exposures. You do have to be aware that if you are in an enclosed environment using those, you can get dizzy. There are people who just went so far that you could pass out, and it can be toxic. It can hurt you long term. So short-term exposures, I'm not aware of anything that is very problematic, other than there is a suggestion of cancer risks over years to decades with some of these things. A lot of the compounds they've improved. One of the big ones is it's not a finish, but your fixer for CA glues. Some of the components in there, whenever I smell that, I always want to clear out, have been associated with production of cancer. So I try to spray that away from me, or have my shop's in the third bay of the garage. I have the garage door open at all times when I'm using those kinds of products. But just to go full circle back to Mark's product, once they're fully cured, if you cannot smell them, as Ken said, the sniff test, they're safe. You really don't have to worry about them. These products that we talk about with volatile organics, it's all evaporated off, and you can set them right down next to your grandkids, and they're fine. They're safe. There's no evidence of toxicity at all. It's all bound up in the cured finish.
Well, it's ironic we're talking about CA glue right now. I was just doing some of that yesterday, and the odor, the smell was pretty strong. So I got a small desktop fan and put next to me working, and just blow those fumes away from me. So if you're going to be doing some CA application, you might consider that, especially if it's several spots that you're doing using CA glue.
And try to minimize your use of that spray. That is a problematic one. And then finally, I guess from safety, Chuck, I'm glad you brought that up. Go back to that advertising. I'm not picking on Tried and True at all. This is across the industry. Everybody is playing games with us. Don't buy into any of the mythology that you're reading on these products, that one is necessarily safer than the other. They're all food safe. The real issue is when you're doing production and you're smelling that stuff, what is your risk, not the final product.
And the other point, I think our former safety chair, who's sitting right in front of us, talked about gloves. I've until Dan really talked to us about gloves, I was pretty lax on using them, but I have found now that, those gloves are so darn cheap that just put a glove on anytime you use finish. It just doesn't make sense not to.
Good idea.
One last thing, storage. Always store your anything but the water-based ones, store them away from any type of heat source, anything that sparks. And you don't, this surprised me, you don't want them in an airtight box because in case of a fire, that airtight box becomes an explosive. Uh, the other stuff is an accelerant, but in an airtight situation, it becomes an explosive.
Good advice. Any other questions, comments? We made it right at 9:30 here today.
Bruce, I'd like to throw in one quick thing regarding any of the, well, lacquer especially, but any of the oils like the old Danish oil that had the dryers in it. I haven't used it lately, so I don't know what the new Danish oil is like. But if they've got dryers and you put something, and I'll go back to lacquer, if you put lacquer on really heavy and you think it's dry because it's been on there for 15 minutes or an hour or whatever, if you've got it on heavy, it's drying from the top down. So if it's on heavy, the top is dry and it's relatively hard, but inside it's still soft. So if you're using anything with the dryers or with the spray-ons that is like lacquer, put a real thin coat on, and if it takes you 20 coats, you can get the buildup and get it with a hard buildup, and it doesn't take that long. And I think if you read the instructions, they usually tell you to wait, I don't know, 20 minutes or a half hour or whatever between coats. If you put it on really thin and do that, just a real quick, thin, single pass coat of spray, you can get a hard buildup and a real glossy finish with lacquer. And if you've got just a mediocre spray booth to do that, you can keep the crud out of the finish. And if you spray a real gloss lacquer and you get a real deep gloss and you like it, you can take, and I can't think of the name of it, I wish Gary Frank was on with this. You can take a buffing pad, not on the buffer, but you can take just a hand pad and basically hand sand it or sand it on the lathe. Just barely touch it with like a 2500 grit, whatever that stuff is, and you can get rid of the gloss if you don't like that, and you can take it down to any level of satin that you like just by using that Barillo pad looking stuff.
Okay. Back to safety for 1 second. I know all of us are pretty good about wearing masks. Remember that those N95, N100, or respirator masks are predominantly for particles and not for gases. They work by electrostatic mechanisms more so than just the filter aspect. They electrostatically attract those tiny 2-micron particles. So gases are obviously vastly smaller than that and can go right through it. So don't rely on a N95, N100, or respirator mask unless you have special cartridges on it to absorb gases to reduce your risk with some of these exposures. N95 masks also, I see a lot of people wearing them. They're not fitted properly. They need to really be pushed down very tight on your nose. And if it's not a little hard breathing while you have it on, it's not fitted properly. And everybody with a mustache and beard has to shave if you want to use an N95. All right, I'll end today as I'm ending on most of them. I would appreciate any comments. Number of people, called me to have this discussion, and boy, I'll tell you what, this was great today. Um, Anybody have any thoughts for next time, just offhand, that you're interested in? Okay, well, I will ask around, and I'll be at the meeting this month, so I'll ask around with people, and we'll again see if you can talk it up with the new members at the meeting, to see if we can get a little more participation. I think they would benefit from this tremendously.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you.
Bruce.